While churches across Europe grow quieter with each passing year, something completely unexpected is unfolding, far from the traditional heartlands of Christianity. In Indonesia, the world's largest Muslim nation, millions are quietly turning toward the Catholic faith, not through loud headlines or aggressive conversions, but through a steady, almost invisible shift that is now impossible to ignore. How does Catholicism thrive in a country where 87% of the population is Muslim? The answer lies in a story of political survival, silent charity, and a massive historical reversal. Indonesia today counts approximately 8 million Catholics among its 270 million people, but that number does not capture the trajectory, the institutions, the seminaries, the schools, and the political relationships the Church has built across this vast archipelago of 17,000 islands represent something far larger than a statistical minority. They represent a church that has learned over 5 centuries exactly how to survive in conditions that should have made survival impossible. It begins, as so much of Asian Catholic history does, with a single Jesuit. Francis Xavier arrived in the Spice Islands in 1546. The Portuguese had brought Christianity the way they brought everything else, attached to commercial and military power. Xavier took a radically different approach. He learned local languages. He trained indigenous catechists. He understood that a faith imported entirely within a foreign cultural shell would not outlast the empire carrying it. He was right. The Portuguese Empire eventually collapsed. The communities Xavier built did not. The most precise illustration of what this method produced is a church in central Java that most Western Catholics have never heard of. Built in 1924, the Ganjuran Church does not depict Christ as a European. Inside its sanctuary, the figure of Jesus is dressed in traditional Javanese royal batik. The iconography is drawn entirely from local aesthetic tradition. The Mass here is not accompanied by a pipe organ. It is sung to the hypnotic sounds of the gamelan, the percussive bronze ensemble at the center of Javanese court music. The theology is Roman. The cultural expression is entirely Javanese. That delicate negotiation between doctrinal integrity and cultural humility is the architectural principle on which Indonesian Catholicism was built. For 4 centuries, the church grew slowly. Then 1965 arrived, and everything accelerated in the shadow of a national catastrophe. Following a failed military coup in Jakarta, Indonesia descended into one of the most violent episodes of the 20th century. A period of brutal political purges left up to 1 million people dead within months. The atmosphere that emerged from this bloodshed carried a strict, enforceable demand. Indonesia's state ideology, Pancasila, required every citizen to formally register under one of the government's recognized religions. Atheism was banned. To have no religion was to invite immediate suspicion of communist sympathy, and in 1965, that suspicion was a death sentence. Millions of Javanese animists and practitioners of traditional belief systems faced an immediate, terrifying choice. They needed a religion, and they needed it overnight. The Catholic Church offered a sanctuary. It offered schools, hospitals, and institutional stability at a moment when Indonesian society was collapsing into disorder. Entire communities in central Java registered as Catholic, not as a temporary political calculation, but as an entry point into a network that would educate their children, staff their clinic, and structure their community for the next 3 generations. What began as desperate survival became a permanent inheritance. The grandchildren of those 1965 converts are Catholics today, not because of a government registration form, but because the church safely embedded itself into the fabric of their daily lives before they were even born. That deep embedding reveals itself entirely when you look at the islands of Flores and West Timor. Flores is called, without exaggeration, the Catholic island. Catholicism here is not a Sunday practice bracketed by secular weekday. It is the rhythm of the agricultural calendar, the structure of village governance, and the framework for birth, marriages, and death. But beyond these strongholds, the church expanded its influence through a strategy of silent charity. The Jesuits and the De La Salle brothers constructed educational institutions across the archipelago that became the preferred schools for Indonesia's emerging professional class, regardless of their religion. Today, Muslim politicians are educated in Catholic schools. Muslim business leaders hold degrees from Catholic universities. The church built its reputation not through loud theological arguments, but through unmatched institutional competence. This unique mutual respect has a physical expression standing right in the center of Jakarta. The Jakarta Cathedral and the Istiqlal Mosque, the largest mosque in Southeast Asia, face each other across a narrow intersection. intersection. Beneath that intersection runs a passage connecting the two buildings directly. It is called the Terowongan Silaturahmi, the Tunnel of Friendship, built so that during major religious celebrations, when crowds overflow, the faithful of one religion can move through to assist the other with logistics and crowd management. When Pope Francis walked through that tunnel in 2024, accompanied by the Grand Imam, he described Indonesia not just as a case study in tolerance, but as a global blueprint for interreligious coexistence. This thriving coexistence occurs against a backdrop that Europe's struggling dioceses would find difficult to comprehend. Outside the city of Maumere on Flores stands the St. Peter Ritaperet Seminary, one of the largest Catholic seminaries in the world. Its halls are packed. Indonesian men are not leaving the church for secular careers at the rate of their European counterparts. They are entering formation in numbers that have made Indonesia a primary engine of Catholic missionary export in the 21st century. The Divine Word Missionary, founded in the Netherlands in 1875, now operate one of their most productive recruitment pipelines through Indonesia. Indonesian priests are currently serving in Germany, in Italy, and across the United States, filling parish positions that local vocations can no longer supply. 500 years ago, European missionaries sailed southeast to bring Catholicism to the Indonesian archipelago. Today, the movement runs in the exact opposite direction. Indonesian priests are sailing northwest to keep European parishes operational. The historical reversal is not partial, it is complete. The generation carrying this forward is not looking backward. Indonesian Catholic youth are the fastest growing demographic within the church's digital presence in Southeast Asia. They are not preserving a museum. They are expanding a living institution that has survived colonialism, communist purges, and sectarian violence, emerging from each crisis with deeper roots. The churches of Europe grow quieter. In Indonesia, they are still laying new stone. 8 million Catholic, the world's largest Muslim nation. Indonesia is not the future the church planned. It is the future the church needed.